to find myself hiding behind a potted palm tree in an upscale restaurant, spying on my boss while she suffered through the worst date I'd ever witnessed. But there I was, 32 years old, a single father with custody of my 8-year-old daughter, crouched informal where I couldn't afford, about to make a decision that would change everything. What I didn't know then was that Elise Harrington, the untouchable CEO of Meridian Publishing where I worked as a mid-level editor, had been harboring feelings for me for months. And what happened next would turn both our worlds upside down. "Daddy, why are we hiding?" my daughter Lily whispered, tugging at my sleeve. I'd promised her a fancy dinner out to celebrate her winning the school science fair, but now we were both frozen in place, watching my boss's date deteriorate across the dining room. "We're not hiding, sweetheart," I lied, adjusting my tie. "We're just waiting for our table." But the truth was, I couldn't look away from the train wreck unfolding before us. The man sitting across from Elise was clearly drunk, getting louder by the minute, and she looked like she was searching for an escape route. I had no idea that in less than 5 minutes, would be throwing a glass of water in a stranger's face, that by midnight I would discover secrets about my boss that would leave me speechless, or that by the end of the week, 3 lives would be completely transformed. The maitre d' finally approached us. "Mr. Bennett? Your table is ready." As we followed him through the restaurant, I made a split-second decision that would set everything in motion. "Actually," I said, pointing to a table near Elise's, "could we sit there instead?" Growing up with a single mom who worked 3 jobs, I learned early that sometimes you have to be your own hero. After my ex-wife walked out on Lily and me 3 years ago, that lesson only deepened. I'd built walls around my heart, using humor as my shield and focusing entirely on giving Lily the stability she deserved. Romance wasn't even on my radar, especially not with someone like Elise Harrington. At work, Elise was a force of nature. Brilliant, demanding, and impossibly elegant, she had transformed Meridian from a struggling publishing house to an industry powerhouse in just 4 years. Employees either feared or worshipped her. I mainly tried to stay off her radar, even after she had personally recruited me from a competitor last year. "That lady looks sad," Lily observed as we settled at our table. She wasn't wrong. Despite Elisa's composed exterior, her white skin flushed slightly, long silky blonde hair perfectly arranged, her figure flawless in a midnight blue dress, I could see tension in her shoulders. The man across from her was now loudly bragging about his investment portfolio while scrolling through his phone. "Some people aren't very nice on dates," I explained quietly to Lily, trying to focus on the menu instead of eavesdropping. "Is that why you don't go on dates, Daddy?" Lily asked innocently. I nearly choked on my water. "I go on dates," I protested weakly. "No, you don't," she countered with the brutal honesty only children possess. "Ms. Garcia says you're emotionally unavailable." Mental note: have a talk with Lily's teacher about appropriate conversations with 8-year-olds. "Let's order dessert first tonight," I suggested, desperate to change the subject. Lily's face lit up, momentarily distracting me from the disaster unfolding 3 tables away. That distraction ended when I heard a glass slam down. Elisa's date was now visibly angry about something, his voice carrying across the restaurant. "You think you're too good for everyone, don't you? Ice Queen." Several diners turned to stare. Elise said something too quiet to hear, clearly trying to defuse the situation. The man grabbed her wrist. Without thinking, I stood up. "Stay here," I told Lily, and walked directly to their table. "Excuse me," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite my racing heart. "Elise? Is everything okay?" Her eyes widened in recognition, a flash of something, relief? Embarrassment, crossing her face. "James? What are you doing here?" Her date glared at me. "Who the hell are you?" I smiled, channeling every ounce of charm I possessed. "James Bennett. And you must be the unfortunate man who's about to have a drink spilled on him if he doesn't let go of her wrist." What happened next would become company legend, though the versions that circulated never quite captured the look of pure shock on Elise's face when her date stood up, took a swing at me, missed spectacularly, and ended up face first in a nearby dessert cart. I hadn't even touched him. His own drunken momentum did all the work. Security escorted him out while he shouted obscenities. I turned to Elise, ready to apologize for interfering, when Lily appeared at my side. "Is the mean man gone?" she asked, looking up at Elise with curious eyes. Something in Elise's expression softened as she looked at my daughter. "Yes, he is. Thank you for asking." She knelt down to Lily's level. "I like your dress. It's very pretty." "Thank you. Daddy says it's my special occasion dress. I won the science fair with my project on how plants grow toward light." "Phototropism," Elise said with a genuine smile. "That's impressive." I stood there, stunned. In a year at Meridian, I'd never seen Elise Harrington smile like that, warm, unguarded, reaching all the way to her eyes. "Would you like to join us?" I heard myself asking before I could think better of it. We were just about to order dessert first, weren't we, Lily? "Yes," Lily exclaimed. "Daddy says rules don't apply on celebration nights." Elise hesitated, then nodded. "I'd like that very much." That night changed everything, though not in the way you might expect. We didn't fall into each other's arms or share a magical kiss. Instead, something rarer happened. Over chocolate mousse and Lily's animated science fair stories, Elise Harrington became human to me. I learned she had grown up in foster care, that she read fantasy novels to unwind, that she had a weakness for bad reality TV. She laughed at my jokes, not politely, but with genuine amusement that transformed her face. When Lily eventually fell asleep against my shoulder, Elise helped me carry her to my car. "Thank you," she said quietly in the parking lot. "Not just for the rescue, but for normalcy. It's been a while." "Anytime," I replied, meaning it more than I expected to. "Though maybe next time skip the dating app millionaires." She smiled again, that real smile. "Noted." I drove home that night with a sleeping Lily in the back seat, telling myself that nothing had really changed. Elise was still my boss. I was still a single dad with responsibilities and no time for complications. This was just a strange, one-time intersection of our separate worlds. I was wrong. Monday morning, I found a handwritten note on my desk thanking me for my gallant rescue and inviting Lily and me to the children's book launch party Meridian was hosting that weekend. It was signed simply D. Gallant Rescue? My friend and coworker Tara peered over my shoulder. "What did you do?" "Nothing," I said, quickly tucking the note away. "Just helped her with something." Tara raised an eyebrow. "James Bennett, are you blushing? Did something happen between you and the Ice Queen?" "Don't call her that," I said automatically, surprising myself with my defensiveness. Tara's eyes widened. "Oh my God, something did happen." "Nothing happened," I insisted. "We just had dessert." "You had dessert with Elise Harrington?" Tara's voice rose enough that several heads turned our way. "The woman who made Derek from marketing cry last week?" "She's not like that," I found myself saying. "Not really. She's actually, kind of amazing." The words hung in the air between us. Tara stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "James," she said slowly, "please tell me you're not falling for our boss." "Of course not," I scoffed. "That would be completely inappropriate and complicated and exactly your type," Tara finished. "Unavailable women with walls higher than yours." I wanted to argue, but my phone buzzed with a text from Lily's school. She had forgotten her lunch. Again. "I have to go," I said, grateful for the escape. "Lunch emergency." "This conversation isn't over." Tara called after me. In the elevator, I ran directly into Elise. She was dressed in her usual impeccable style, a tailored white blouse and pencil skirt that highlighted her perfect figure, but something was different. She seemed almost nervous. "James," she said, her voice formal but with an undercurrent I couldn't quite identify. "I hope my note wasn't presumptuous." "Not at all," I assured her. "Lily would love to come. She hasn't stopped talking about you, actually." Something flickered across Elisa's face. "Pleasure? And you? Would you like to come too?" The elevator doors opened, saving me from answering immediately. We stepped out together. "I would," I said finally. "But I should be clear, I'm not really in a place for complications. Lily has to be my priority." Elise nodded, her expression unreadable. "Of course. This is just a thank you. Professional courtesy." "Right," I agreed, ignoring the strange disappointment I felt. "Professional." She turned to go, then paused. "Your daughter is lucky to have you, James. Not many people would put someone else's needs so completely before their own." Before I could respond, she was walking away, leaving me with the unsettling feeling that she had seen something in me that I hadn't intended to reveal. What I didn't know then was that Elise had her own reasons for keeping people at a distance. I didn't know about the childhood that had taught her trust was dangerous, or about the fiancé who had betrayed her spectacularly just as Meridian was launching. I didn't know that she had noticed me long before that night at the restaurant, or that my dedication to Lily reminded her of what she'd never had. I didn't know that the real antagonist in our story wasn't her terrible date or my ex-wife or even our own fears. It was the publishing industry rival who was plotting to take over Meridian, using any vulnerability he could find. And Elisa's growing feelings for me were about to become exactly the weakness he was looking for. The book launch party was held at the city's botanical gardens. Lily was enchanted by the butterfly conservatory, running from exhibit to exhibit while I tried to keep up. I'd dressed us both in our best clothes. Her in a yellow sundress, me in the only suit I owned that wasn't hopelessly outdated. "There she is!" Lily suddenly exclaimed, pointing across the garden. Elise stood talking to a group of people, sunlight catching in her hair. She wore a simple white dress that made her look younger, less intimidating than her office persona. As if sensing our presence, she looked up and saw us. The smile that spread across her face made my heart do something complicated in my chest. "You came," she said when she reached us, sounding genuinely pleased. "We wouldn't miss it," I replied, suddenly aware of how close she was standing. "Miss Harrington, can I show you the butterflies?" Lily asked, already taking Elisa's hand. "I'd love that," Elise said, allowing herself to be led away. She glanced back at me with a look that seemed to say, "Is this okay?" I nodded, watching them go, struck by how natural they looked together. My daughter and my boss, heads bent in conversation as Lily pointed out her favorite butterflies. "Quite the family picture," a voice said beside me. I turned to find Marcus Whitley, CEO of our biggest competitor, Apex Publishing. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Just colleagues," I said, instantly on guard. Whitley's reputation preceded him, ruthless, manipulative, and rumored to be behind several hostile takeovers in the industry. "Really?" His gaze followed Elise and Lily. "That's not what I've heard. Word is, Elise Harrington has finally found her weakness." He looked directly at me. "You." Before I could respond, he continued, "Did you know Meridian is in trouble? The Westover acquisition fell through. The board is getting nervous. They're looking for new leadership, someone who won't let personal feelings cloud their judgment." My mind raced. The Westover deal had been Elisa's project for months, a key part of Meridian's expansion strategy. "If you're trying to intimidate me, you're wasting your time," I said evenly. Whitley shrugged. "Just sharing industry gossip. But if I were you, I'd be careful. Getting involved with Elise Harrington right now could be career suicide, for both of you. He walked away, leaving me with a sick feeling in my stomach. Was Meridian really in trouble? And was my growing relationship with Elise, whatever it was, putting her position at risk? Across the garden, I watched as Elise laughed at something Lily said, her face open and joyful in a way I'd never seen at the office. For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine what it might be like if she were part of our lives, not as my boss, but as something more. The thought terrified me. When Elise returned with Lily, I was still shaken by Whitley's warning. She must have noticed, because her smile faltered. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "Fine," I lied. "Just work stuff." She studied my face. "James, if there's something." "Daddy, can I get ice cream?" Lily interrupted, pointing to a vendor across the lawn. "Sure, sweetheart." I handed her a few dollars, watching carefully as she joined the short line within my sight. Elise touched my arm gently. "James, what's wrong? You seem upset." I hesitated, then decided on honesty. I just had an interesting conversation with Marcus Whitley. Her expression hardened. What did he want? To warn me, apparently. About you. About us. I met her eyes. Is Meridian in trouble, Elise? Did the Westover deal fall through? She was silent for a long moment. Yes, she finally admitted. But we're not finished yet. I have a backup plan. Whitley seemed to think the board is looking for new leadership. Whitley would love nothing more than to see me fail. Her voice was tight. He's been trying to orchestrate a takeover for years. He also seemed to think that, whatever is happening between us, could be used against you. Elisa's gaze softened. And what is happening between us, James? The question hung in the air between us. I looked at Lily, happily licking her ice cream cone, then back at Elise. I don't know, I admitted. But I think I'd like to find out. A smile began to form on her lips, but before she could respond, her assistant appeared, looking panicked. Ms. Harrington, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but there's an emergency. The board has called an immediate meeting. Elisa's face transformed, the vulnerable woman disappearing behind the CEO mask. When? Now. They're on video conference waiting. She turned to me, conflict clear in her eyes. James, Go, I said. We understand. She nodded gratefully, then surprised me by quickly kissing my cheek. This isn't over, she whispered, and then she was gone, striding purposefully toward the exit. Lily returned, ice cream dripping down her fingers. Where did Ms. Harrington go? She had to work, sweetheart. Is she going to be your girlfriend? Lily asked with the directness only children possess. I stared at her, startled. What makes you ask that? Because you look at her the way Prince Charming looks at Cinderella. And she looks at you the same way. Out of the mouths of babes. The next week was chaos. Rumors about Meridian's troubles spread through the office like wildfire. Elise was rarely seen, locked in meetings with the board and potential investors. The few times our paths crossed, she looked exhausted but determined. I tried to focus on my work, on Lily, on anything but the growing worry that whatever had started between Elise and me was already over, crushed under the weight of corporate politics. Then came the night that changed everything. It was nearly midnight. I had just finished reviewing a manuscript and was about to head home when my office phone rang. It was the security desk. Mr. Bennett, there's someone here to see you. Ms. Harrington. My heart jumped. Send her up. When the elevator doors opened, I barely recognized her. Elisa's normally perfect appearance was disheveled, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing jeans and a simple sweater instead of her usual designer attire. I'm sorry to come so late, she said, stepping into my office. I didn't know where else to go. What happened? I asked, guiding her to sit down. Whitley made his move. He convinced 2 board members to back his takeover bid. Her voice was steady, but I could see the strain in her eyes. I have 48 hours to secure new funding or present an alternative strategy, or I lose Meridian. Can you do it? She looked at me directly. Yes. But I need your help. My help? Elise, I'm just an editor. You're much more than that. She took a deep breath. The manuscript you've been editing, the one by J.R. Winters? It's going to save Meridian. I stared at her in confusion. J.R. Winters was a reclusive author whose fantasy series had developed a cult following. The manuscript I'd been working on was his first new work in a decade. It's brilliant, I said, but how does it save the company? Because Netflix wants it. They're offering a 7-figure deal for adaptation rights, enough to stabilize our finances and prove to the board that my content strategy is working. That's fantastic news, I said, relief washing over me. But what do you need from me? Winters trusts you. He's refused to sign the adaptation agreement unless you personally oversee the creative direction. She leaned forward. James, this isn't just about saving my job. It's about saving everyone's jobs at Meridian, including yours. I nodded slowly, processing what she was asking. I'll do whatever I can. But Elise, there's something else we need to talk about. Us, she said quietly. Yes. If we do this together. People will talk. Whitley already thinks he can use our relationship against you. Let them talk. Her voice was suddenly fierce. I'm tired of making decisions based on what others might think. For once in my life, I want to choose what makes me happy. She reached for my hand. Who makes me happy? The intensity in her eyes took my breath away. Elise, I have a daughter. My life is complicated. I know. And I adore Lily. She squeezed my hand. I'm not asking for promises, James. I'm just asking for a chance. In that moment, looking at her, vulnerable, determined, beautiful, I realized I'd been falling for Elise Harrington since that night in the restaurant. Maybe even before. Okay, I said softly. Let's save your company. And then let's figure out, us. Her smile was like sunrise breaking through clouds. The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. We worked side by side, drafting proposals, making calls, preparing for the board meeting that would determine Meridian's fate. Somewhere in the midst of it all, the boundaries between boss and employee, between friends and something more, began to blur. Late the second night, with the board meeting looming the next morning, we found ourselves alone in her office, surrounded by empty coffee cups and takeout containers. We should get some rest, I said, noticing the exhaustion in her eyes. I can't. Not yet. She paced nervously. What if it's not enough? What if Whitley still wins? I stood and gently caught her shoulders, stopping her mid-pace. Then we'll face that together. But Elise, you've done everything possible. She looked up at me, vulnerability and strength mingled in her expression. When did you become my rock, James Bennett? Probably around the time you became mine, I admitted. The air between us changed, charged with everything unsaid. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, I leaned down and kissed her. It was gentle at first, then deepened as she responded, her arms sliding around my neck. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, she rested her forehead against mine. I've wanted to do that since I saw you throw water in that awful man's face. I laughed softly. I never actually threw the water. He fell into the dessert cart all on his own. My knight in shining armor, she teased, then grew serious. James, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have said sooner. My heart stuttered. What is it? That night at the restaurant wasn't a coincidence. I knew you were taking Lily there to celebrate her science fair win. I pulled back slightly, confused. How? Because I've been in love with you for months, she confessed, the words rushing out. Since the day you challenged me in that editorial meeting about the Thompson manuscript. You were the only person brave enough to tell me I was wrong, and you were right. I stared at her, stunned. You've been in love with me since then. But you barely spoke to me after that meeting. Because I was terrified, she admitted. I've spent my entire career proving I'm more than just a pretty face, that I deserve my position. And then suddenly there you were, brilliant, kind, devoted to your daughter, and all I could think about was how your smile made me feel. So that night at the restaurant, I asked my assistant where you were taking Lily to celebrate. I made a reservation at the same place. She looked embarrassed. I didn't plan for my date to be such a disaster, but when you stepped in to rescue me. She shook her head, smiling. It was like something from one of our romance novels. I was speechless, trying to process that Elise Harrington, the woman I'd admired from afar, then up close, had been interested in me all along. Say something, she whispered, uncertainty creeping into her voice. I cupped her face gently. I think, I said slowly, that we've both been hiding from something that could be amazing. Her smile was radiant. So what do we do now? First, we save your company. Then, maybe I take you on a proper date, one where no one ends up wearing dessert. The board meeting the next morning was tense. Whitley sat smugly at one end of the table, clearly expecting victory. But he hadn't counted on the power of Elise and me working together. When she presented the Netflix deal, complete with my creative direction plan that had secured J.R. Winter's approval, the atmosphere in the room shifted. By the time she finished outlining her vision for Meridian's future, a vision we had crafted together through the night, even Whitley looked concerned. The vote was unanimous in Elise's favor. As the board members filed out, Whitley paused beside us. This isn't over, he said quietly. And when your little romance implodes, Harrington, I'll be waiting to pick up the pieces of your career. Elise smiled serenely. I look forward to proving you wrong. On both counts. After he left, she turned to me, eyes shining. We did it. You did it, I corrected. I just helped with the details. No, she said firmly. We did it. Together. She took my hand, not caring who might see. And I think that's how we should do everything from now on. 6 months later, Meridian was thriving. The Netflix adaptation was in production, our stock price had doubled, and Whitley's takeover attempts had become a distant memory. More importantly, Elise had become a fixture in Lily's life and mine. Movie nights, science projects, Sunday morning pancakes, she fit into our world as if she'd always been meant to be there. Are you sure about this? I asked one evening as we prepared dinner in my small apartment kitchen. Lily was setting the table, carefully arranging the fancy napkins Elise had brought over. About what? Elise asked, stirring the pasta sauce. All of this. Dating a single dad. The complications. The fact that I come with a built-in family. She put down the spoon and turned to face me. James Bennett, when will you understand that's exactly what I love about you? Your devotion to Lily, your integrity, your willingness to put others first, those aren't complications. They're the reasons I fell in love with you. Even though I'm just a mid-level editor and you're the CEO? She smiled that real smile that still made my heart skip. Especially because of that. You never needed my title or my success to feel complete. You just needed me, the real me. I pulled her close, overwhelmed by how lucky I was. I love you, I whispered against her hair. I know, she whispered back. I've known since you saved me from that terrible date. Daddy, MS. Elise, the table's ready. Lily called. As we joined my daughter at the table, I realized that sometimes the most unexpected rescues lead to the most beautiful beginnings. I had saved Elise from a bad date, not knowing she was already in love with me. She had saved me from my fear of opening my heart again. And together, we had created something neither of us expected but both of us needed, a family. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe to the channel for more emotional journeys like this one. Remember that sometimes the love we're looking for is already right in front of us, we just need the courage to reach for it. I'd love to know which country you're watching from. Share in the comments below and let me know if this story resonated with your own experiences of unexpected love.